Let's be real. Marketing for your company can feel like a full-time job on top of your actual full-time job. You think about hiring an agency, that's too expensive. Building an in-house team, that's too much of a hassle. What about doing it yourself? Forget about that. That's where ProMode changes the game. It's an AI-powered marketing platform built for B2B businesses that handles all of your marketing. That means the blogs, social media, emails, SEO, all of that at 10 times the speed that an agency can do it. And here's the kicker. It costs just $2,500 a month, and it has zero headaches and no hidden fees. And if you're skeptical about that, just try it risk-free with a 30-day money-back guaranteed. If you're tired of marketing getting in the way of running your business, head over to our friends at ProMode and finally get marketing handled without the stress. And don't forget to use code KCBC when you sign up to waive your $5,000 onboarding fee. Welcome to Kansas City Business Cast. No music, no intro. We're just going to get right into it today. Welcome to episode 54, also known as the season 5 finale of Kansas City Business Cast. At this point, we have been at this podcast since about October 2023, but I have never taken on a full episode on my own, just solo. And I felt like now was the right time to do it. Okay. I hit 50 episodes recently. You will remember John Little was my 50th guest. Couldn't be happier about who came on. He had just hit 100 episodes. Congratulations again, John, on that. And, you know, I've been reflecting a lot along the way. And so those of you who have listened to every episode or most of our episodes, you'll hear my reflections kind of leak out sometimes in talks with my guests, right? I'll talk about, you know, what the podcasting journey is like. I'll talk about, you know, the trials and tribulations with editing and getting guests secured and having folks fall through and all of that stuff. And I've never really taken a full length, uninterrupted, to kind of express all the things that I'm grateful for with this podcast, all the things that this podcast has done for me, all the things that this podcast has done for our guests, all the things that this podcast has done for my family, like my wife and my kids. One of my daughters is wearing a Kansas City Business Cast shirt today on our family outing. And it's just so wild sometimes to think about this idea that it literally just started as an idea and is now this podcast with a community and, you know, 50 plus episodes and sponsorships, and we've got, you know, better equipment, and we've made some solid connections. I've gotten to go on other people's shows in our area, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit as well. But it is very wild to think that this thing that started just as a crazy idea, and I do mean crazy because I was anti social media, anti putting myself out there, anti just people knowing about my life, really. I got to tell you real quick before we get into a little bit of my reflections, is that I saw social media as the devil pretty much. I mean, I just really, before getting into this podcasting journey, my perspective on social media was very negative. I actually stayed off social media for about 10 years, went through that move from California to Kansas City off social media. Had a brief stint at the beginning of COVID in 2020. And with a lot of the things that happen on social media, if you were there on social media, you might have made the same decision to take a break for a minute. I took a break. And so my first time back to social media since 2021 was with this podcast in 2023. And so, you know, loyal listeners and, you know, KCBC tribe members will know that this all started because I was laid off from my full-time leadership job. And because I was starting my coaching business with VAS LLC, I was talking to business owners anyway. And I walked away from so many of those conversations going, gosh, I wish that conversation would have been recorded. Right. And so then it was like, okay, well, why don't I do a podcast? And, you know, ever since then, I've kind of added other folks to the mix. Like we've had multiple podcasters on this show by now. We've had people who are technically just influencers or content creators. And, you know, we've kind of expanded it. So it's still by Kansas City for Kansas City. All right. So first order of business after all that introductory language, I just want to say a huge thanks to our season 5 sponsors. Okay. That would be ProMode.ai, Silverstone Bookkeeping, and Black Trip Coffee. So first off, let me give these sponsors their flowers. Heather Gertis, who was on the show twice before to talk about her business, The Marketing Agent, and then again about ProMode.ai, has a lot of faith in this podcast and me as business owner, what Stephanie's doing. And when I spoke with her about the opportunity of sponsoring the show, I don't think she had to think twice. She really was just on board. So I just want to give a huge thanks to her and Matt from ProMode for their faith in this movement and for, supporting us so that we can make some upgrades, improvements, and kind of pay some of the bills. Really appreciate you guys. And, again, if you're listening to this, even 2 months, 3 months down the road, and you heard that ProMode.ai sponsorship, go check them out. Tell them I sent you. You'll get your free demo, and then you'll get the $5,000 off. Basically, your onboarding fee is waived if you mention KCBC and you sign up with ProMode. So again, let them help you with your social media marketing and your content push. They can do it. That engine is so powerful. By the time you hear this, even if it's a few months down the road, I can't imagine the growth that ProMode's going to go through. So the other one would be Silverstone Bookkeeping. You might remember Emily Lynn Hart from season 3 came on the show and spoke about Silverstone Bookkeeping. So Emily and I go way back. And when I say way back, I mean 2023, when I got my start as an entrepreneur and when I started this podcast. Okay. Emily is just an awesome business owner. As I have connected with her over the last 2 years, she actually used VAS, my company, consulting services. We work together to improve some processes and things like that. She has grown her company now, I want to say 75% from the time that we had first initiated talks in, coaching agreements. Emily is an amazing business owner. If you are looking for a bookkeeping service for your business, she will keep things straight with integrity. I promise you it'll be a learning experience. She will help you sharpen your business's financials and keep things straight so that by the time you go to your records and it's tax season and all that, you're not caught off guard. Okay. So again, if you decide to contact Silverstone Bookkeeping, make sure that you mention KCBC. Last and certainly not least, Black Drip Coffee. Dan and Sharon, I appreciate you both very much. Sharon was on the show. He was actually our season 1 finale guest back in the day. Gosh, almost over a year ago now. And when I was making calls for that 3rd sponsor slot for season 5, he was like, hey, how about us? And so that's how we worked out the deal to send that free bag of Renegade out to all of our guests for the season. And I'm excited now because the bag that was on my desk that I was showing on camera for all these episodes, it's gone. It's about halfway done up in my pantry right now. I have been thoroughly enjoying that. And again, I just love Black Drip Coffee. I love their story. I love everything that Dan and Sharon are doing with Porterhouse KC. Just incredible work. The 811 space, that just everything that those guys do. I love being a part of that. And we've had quite a few Porterhouse KC affiliated guests on the show. And I'm happy to announce that if everything goes through, we'll have some more on in season 6. So very proud of what we've done with our local sponsors. So I'll just say that, the journey to get to where we're at right now with this show it has not been easy, right? It's been worth it. I will say that for every challenge that we've had, and most of it's related to the time commitment with the editing, with guests scheduling, guests coming through on that initial intake form, things of that nature, for all the craziness that we've had with all those things, just the logistics of managing a podcast, really, all of the rewards, the return on investment, the return on time it's been amazing. In some ways, it's been very valuable in the way that we've been able to, obtain sponsorships and support that have helped with paying the monthly fees on the software that we have, equipment upgrades, things of that nature. And just on the invaluable end, it's about the connections, okay? And, John Little talked about this on episode 50, but the connections that he has gained for doing this podcasting stuff, that is where the beauty is in podcasting. And I will tell you that Obviously getting past the third episode is a challenge and not many podcasters make it. Then there's a certain amount, I think it's like, 20% more drop off after episode 12. It's very hard, but it is very worth it. If you have subject matter that you're passionate about and you can stay consistent. And when I say consistent, I mean whatever that means for you. If your podcast releases one episode every month and it reliably does so every month, that is consistent. If you decide that you are going to do 3 podcasts per quarter and you do that every quarter, you are consistent, okay? It doesn't have to be this everyday thing like some of the major podcasters are doing. I mean, look, they're getting paid to do this. Joe Rogan literally makes millions of dollars off of sponsorships, the ad revenue, all those things, right? So when you're starting out, do not put that weight on yourself as a creator, okay? Make it so that whatever you can do consistently, that's what you can do. So if you're like me and you're a full-time employee, you got a business that you're trying to grow, you got a podcast, you're a spouse, you got kids, whatever, don't set your bar so high because you're going to fail. You're not going to meet the mark, okay? When I started this podcast, I was trying to build my coaching business, and I had a lot of time that I was having to spend away from that because it got stressful. When my 8-hour day was trying to get a job and also build a coaching business, I needed something that was going to give me that creative freedom. So I was doing the podcast and I said, hey, I could do this every week. And that was when I was spending about 20 hours of editing and posting and all that stuff per episode. Okay. And then I got a full-time job, and that was great because that added a lot of stability to our family. It added, healthcare benefits, got me a retirement plan again, all that. Work for an employee-owned company. Love this company. Best place I've worked for, okay? But it made a time constraint on the podcast. And so what I needed to do is I needed to say, what are my expectations? And I still want to be consistent, but I got to find a way to not spend 20 hours on every episode. So how can I whittle that down? And so I took it from 20 hours to 18 hours, and I got to 15 hours. And now I'm at about 5-6 hours on every episode. And when I say that, I mean, basically from the time that I send out the first form to the guests, they fill it out, then I get it scheduled, and then I prep my prep time, then actually having the conversation, doing a once over to edit it, then make the reels for social media, do the write-up, schedule things. It's about 6 hours. As I say all that, maybe 10 hours per episode. But that time, we don't just manufacture that out of nowhere. I still have to make sacrifices, but for me, that's what consistency looks like. I've also taken breaks. Podcasters, don't be afraid to take breaks, okay? You are not letting anybody down if you have to take a break, or if your family is saying, Uncle, we really need some help around the house or whatever. Obviously, I speak from deep personal experience. Then that's what you have to do, okay? I think the war cry of my soul with this podcast has been perseverance. Don't give up, okay? I've wanted to give up plenty of times, okay? There are times where out of all the inventory accounts in my life, this podcast has the lowest priority because I got stuff going on with family, I got stuff going on with work or with health or finances or whatever, and it is very tempting to just let it go. Kansas City business owners making $100,000 a year or more. Let's talk about your finances. They could be a mess, and that could cost you big, right? Are you wasting hours in QuickBooks? Are you misclassifying transactions? Are you making tax mistakes? Obviously, that's all money down the drain, or worse, an IRS fine. Silverstone Bookkeeping has helped 50 plus businesses clean up their books fast. Now, for a limited time, they're offering a QuickBooks diagnostic review and tax savings session for just $150. That's usually a $500 value. Within 48 hours, they'll flag 8 to 25 key fixes and uncover potential tax savings for your business. Give them a call at 913-732-4151 or visit silverstonebookkeeping.com now. But then I start to think about all the connections that we've made on this show. I think about the KCBC tribe. I think about the fact that there have been so many people now that have connected with each other that have been on the show in the past, and they found each other because they were part of this sort of cadre of guests that I've had on the show. And it's just an incredible feeling. It's an amazing feeling to go on other shows as well, which again, now I'll pivot to say this is where the show has been a huge blessing to me. It has been connecting with other podcasters in Kansas City. Okay, so I'll kind of start, and I wrote them down here. That's why I'm kind of looking at my notes, because I want to make sure that I don't forget anybody who has given me my flowers and had me on their show, and they've spent hours editing the episode I was on, or hours posting to social media and promoting what we're doing with Kansas City Business Cast. So the first one, this would be Phil and Corey from Two Fingers Podcast. I know most of you probably haven't heard of them. They had a few episodes that kicked off in 2024. They've talked about revisiting things. I do believe that they will either resurrect the show or they will create their own shows eventually. But Two Fingers Podcast, I was on their show, and Phil and Corey were two of the people that believed in this movement and believed in me right from the very beginning. And so there's a 2-part episode with them that I did on Two Fingers. It will be linked in the show notes. So I want to give them their flowers. Phil and Corey, thank you for being the first podcast that had me on the show. Okay. The other one would be Derek and Andy from Tour Buds. This is another one. A lot of you probably haven't heard of this because it's from a part of my life that I had back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I mean like 20 years ago, because the last full length I did with my old metal band just turned 20 years old about 2 weeks ago. Derek and Andy are growing their show. Their Tour Bud show is all about connecting with touring musicians and folks of that nature. And they had me on to talk about my old band, Sinai Beach. So Andy and Derek are still kicking the tires and lighting the fires. They are doing more live shows, live podcasts, things of that nature. Go tap in with them as well. I will link that episode as well. Okay. And then another person I want to shout out to, and I've done it plenty of times, and this will be no surprise to him either, is Gabriel Garcia from To Bring About Podcast. Gabriel has been just a brother from another mother. Ever since I figured out what To Bring About Podcast was, I went down the rabbit hole, and I have been so honored now to call him one of my closest friends in this podcasting game. Just a good brother. Gabriel had me on his show this past December 2024. And then he also had my wife, Stephanie Reisinger from the Motherhood in America podcast on his show. Her episode went live about a month and a half ago. So go check that out. I'll link them both. But again, Gabriel continues to be one of those people that really cheers me on and encourages me. We share equipment ideas, things of that nature. Definitely go support him. He is a real one here in Kansas City. Then I also had an appearance with John Little on I-70 Podcast. I-70 Podcast is one of the No Solutions Productions podcasts. John Little has also become one of my very dear friends in this podcasting game. I think him and I have so much in common. It's kind of uncanny. It's kind of scary, actually. But you all probably saw him in episode 50 here on Kansas City Business Cast. Please go over to I-70, start checking out their podcasts if you haven't heard his episodes yet. Again, John is one to know here in Kansas City. All of this leading up to the most recent episode that I was on with a local podcast would be indelibly marked with Dominique Kuykendall, okay? Dominique reached out to me after seeing actually a reel that from Gabriel and I's episode, and that's when we started talking, and I found out about what Indelibly Marked was, okay, on the Indelible Arts Network. This show has been so profound to me to see this in my life, to know that these guys are here in Kansas City, and the quality at which Dominique, Darren Kobe, and Keith Murrell do this show with is absolutely astounding. And I love how Dominique's whole thing is finding the heroes in regular people. And that is a theme that resonates very strong with me, with Kansas City Business Cast, making sure that we feature all of the influencers and the people in our city that we are actually going to do life and do business with. That just resonates with me big time. So huge thanks to Dominique, Darren, and Keith for having me on the show and just making a beautiful final product, keeping me on the rails, because you know that interview that I did with them, I think the final cut was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. I was there for about 3 hours. So we talked about quite a bit. And I think Dominique did a really good job of pulling out all the highlights. So y'all will notice that there are a lot of topics in there that I never discuss on this podcast. Okay. To be completely honest, a lot of things I never wanted to talk about on a public stage. My former addictions, going through the adoption process, going through infertility support, going through being morbidly obese, which I have discussed on this show, issues with my identity, generational curses in my family, my faith. I've talked about my faith before, but I don't think anybody's heard me to date from outside of my immediate family and friends speak about my spirituality of the way I did on Indelibly Marked. And, basically giving Jesus the credit for everything good in my life and being honest about my relationship with him too, that I felt like sometimes, he didn't want me to be a dad. He didn't want me to have good things. I mean, that is has been a consistent theme, unfortunately, in my life. I've done plenty of work with other people, friends, counselors, etc., to work through that. And I hoped that by going on that show, that what I said and what I reflected on would be helpful to other people. And so I think that Dominique and Darren and Keith are creating that on that show. They are coming up for the Kansas City People's Choice Awards as well. And I'm going to encourage everyone, if you won't vote for Kansas City Business Cast, check out Indelibly Marked. Give them your vote, because they truly are, I believe, the best podcast that we have in Kansas City right now. And there are so many amazing podcasts. Okay. I've already mentioned I've been on some of my favorite podcasts in Kansas City to bring about I-70. Okay. We've got Bump Jonas from Sprinkle and Some Salt. There are so many amazing podcasters. Heart of the 50 States. I could go on. Okay. But I truly believe that those guys on Indelibly Marked, I think they're doing God's work. And I do believe that more people need to come out and be honest about their life. My wife and I were talking about this, and we were talking about my episode that just went live, and we watched it on the TV Thursday night when it went live. And I started to get really self-conscious. I started to say, gosh, I didn't fully explain that thought. I started to talk about this idea, and then I went right into this topic. And Dominique was so savvy. He caught me a couple times, and he said, I want to go back to this. Like when I found the onesie, which was supposed to be for our first baby in the closet in California. I didn't fully explain. I had a mental breakdown right then and there in that closet. And the reason I was in that closet is because I was packing up our house to come to Kansas City. So I was basically packing up this empty room that was supposed to be for our future adopted baby. And it didn't work out. So I'm sitting there with my wife, right? And we're talking about the things that I should have said, or I misquoted the scripture. I said Noah took 200 years to build a boat. I looked it up afterward. He spent about 75 years building his boat, building the ark, right? Some scholars think it was 125, but I'm like, where'd 200 come? I'm getting all this mental warfare on my episode. And she stops me in my tracks of thought. She's like, Michael, people do not want to follow perfect people anymore. People don't look up to people who don't say and stutter over their thoughts. People want something real. People want something authentic. And I, by no means, am saying that digging into our deep, dark traumas is the only way to get authenticity. Okay? But what I am saying is that we need more honest reflection. And business owners, we need to talk more about the things that pain us. And so we will be talking about that more here in a little bit. I want to get to the future of Kansas City Business Cast, but I think it is so important for everybody to tap into real conversations and find the people that you can have real conversations with in our community, okay? Because it's so important for our personal, professional, spiritual growth. All right. So all that to say, I went through giving my fellow podcasters and peers their flowers. There's plenty of others that I could speak about. Other things that I'm especially proud of right now with Kansas City Business Cast is just the connections that we've made, and to see some of the business owners that we've had on in the past continue to do well. Some of them have actually pivoted since they came on the show as well. Taylor Nosakera is a great example of that. She was the mompreneur that came on. I think it was episode 6. Go check her out. The stuff she's doing as a doula coach now is just incredible. Heather's another example of that. Heather Gerdes, pivoting into ProMode.ai. It's just amazing to see everything that our guests are up to, and we are going to be having a few come back to the show in season 6 as well. Some of the things that I would like to improve, or that I could use people's help with, if you want to be a future guest on the show. If you are wanting to be a guest on the show, I need you to contact me in the DMs, okay? We need to have a conversation about what it would be like to have you on the show. If you ask me and you express interest, or you say that you want to be on the show, I am going to take that seriously, okay? So we have a form that we send out to all of our guests. I usually give the guests 2 weeks to complete the form. At that point, I get your availability. I get all the things that you want to talk about on the show, and then we get it scheduled, okay? So that's the first part, and that's been the hardest part, honestly, for the show. We've had some guests that haven't made it and, didn't come through with that commitment. So that's been one of the challenges, okay? Again, I'll never name folks, never throw anybody under the bus, and I do realize as well that people do get busy and things come up, and sometimes actually coming on a podcast is more stressful than you think when you first think about doing it. I will say that the folks that have second guessed themselves and almost canceled on me but came on the show anyway, they've been so glad that they did. Okay, so that's been another thing that has been awesome, and I just say that to you as a business owner. If you're looking for a podcast to be real on, maybe not as polished as some of the other bigger podcasts that are a little bit more intimidating, and might try to keep you on the rails, maybe this is the podcast for you. Maybe this podcast, obviously the way I'm dressed in this episode should put you at ease a little bit, hopefully. All that to say, coming up next in season 6, I'm really excited. It's going to be a relatively short season. We will have probably about 7 or 8 guests on. There are a couple of returning guests that their initial episodes did really well, and they're just fun conversationalists that I'm really excited to have on. We will be looking for sponsorships, but we're not going to push it as hard as we did for the last couple of seasons. So if you are interested in sponsoring the show and you're a local business, I'd be more than happy to have talks with you about that and pricing and such. But season 6 is going to be fun. We're going to start recording at the end of May. We'll go through June, probably the first part of July. And then the plan is to maybe take an extended break on KCBC. The summer months are pretty hectic anyway for booking shows and guests, and our family is no exception to that. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. I also want to take some time to reflect on what the future should hold for this podcast. So, to be very transparent with everybody, we have had growth on this show, but it has slowed down lately, and I cannot find out why. I don't know why. And so I'm making a call to people that are listening to this and have been there since the beginning. Shoot me your theories as to what we could do to improve this show. Some things I'm already aware of that, I know we need to do to increase engagement, but that is getting back in person and getting cameras on our show and on our people in person. I think that would increase engagement. We have kind of struggled with quality issues here with some of our episodes. The audio's come out weird, or the camera footage has come out weird, or it's choppy or whatever. And so I'm looking into better systems there as well. And then if there's anything you can think of on the subject matter that I should try, or angles I should try to take with my guests, I'm totally open. I would love to hear that from you, especially from the people who have been listening and are still listening from the beginning. Tell me what you see is different from when we first started, what's improved, what could still improve, and what's maybe dropped off in terms of things that you like or that you'd like to hear more of. I really appreciate that. So we're going to be taking that break after season 6. And then we'll just kind of continue from there. But I'm really excited about what the future holds here. Really excited about KCBC TV. Really excited about things with Stephanie and Motherhood in America. And I think it's going to be really good. So I mentioned the Kansas City People's Choice Awards with Indelibly Marked. So I am so honored, just blown away too by the fact that you guys nominated us for best podcast in Kansas City. And the fact that we made it to the final round for voting is the concept. I'm 3 days in now that I've been aware that we were in the finals, and that voting will resume on April 30th, which is literally the day after this episode launches, and our name will be right there with some of our peers. It's just pretty incredible that we were nominated. So if you enjoy what we're doing and you truly do think that we are the best podcast or a gem here in Kansas City, give us your vote. If not, if you don't think we're the best, I would encourage you to vote for Indelibly Marked. I realize how partial it is to do that, but I truly do believe, like I said before, that those guys are running the best podcast in Kansas City right now. And they don't market themselves as a Kansas City only podcast or from Kansas City, but most of the people that they're talking to, they're here in Kansas City. They're in our town. And I don't think anybody is documenting the testimonies, the subject matter, shining a light on people's pain and their trauma for good, so that good can come out of it, and so that people can learn from others' mistakes and things they've learned. But I would just encourage you to do that, to vote in Kansas City People's Choice Awards, because there's not just best podcaster and best influencer categories. There's best business, best salons. There's all kinds of categories. And I think KCPCA is doing an awesome thing for Kansas City. So again, so honored to have Kansas City Business Cast be in the finals for best podcast. And if you don't vote for us, vote for Indelibly Marked. I appreciate all of you supporting this movement. It has been an honor to have some of these conversations and to get this stuff out there. So again, I'm open to feedback. Let me know what you think could be better on the show in future seasons. We're continuing to tweak things. Let me know what your favorite episodes were up to this point as well. And let me know what you're most proud of when it comes to Kansas City Business Cast and being a loyal supporter. What are you most proud to tell people about? I'd love to know that, because I'd like to double down on the things that are working really well for this podcast, and then start to get away from some of the things that maybe aren't working so well. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening, and make sure that you stay tuned for what's coming up in season 6.